Long ago, the goddess Liliana spoke to her daughters about the divine gifts she intended to bestow upon them. Liliana granted each daughter a unique sensory power, voices that comfort, noses that detect goodness, ears that catch the truth, and eyes that discern evil, all to maintain the world's proper form. The divine decree concluded, marking the beginning of a legacy that would shape the future. The title card appears for The Uninvited Goddess, featuring a dark-haired man and a blonde woman standing before a stone fortress. Arilarante is introduced as a nation supposedly blessed by the benevolent goddess Liliana. In the land where gods are said to dwell, the elite residents of the divine capital are known as Shinmin. The sober pope reigns over these Shinmin with absolute authority, declaring himself the proxy of God. A young girl named Yor works hard in a rugged, stone-built village far from the capital's splendor. She scoffs at the ridiculous legends of divine benevolence while toiling in the dirt. A tattooed foreman calls out to Yor, telling her she can take a break once she clears her current work area. Wiping sweat from her face, Yor looks on with an expression of weary determination. The village is filled with the sounds of construction and children playing amidst the backdrop of poverty. Yor surveys her surroundings, bitterly describing the dilapidated area as a filthy city. She stares down at her worn, calloused hands, the physical evidence of her daily struggle. Nearby workers complain about rising prices and the lack of food, resentfully noting that the Shinmin live in luxury without working. Yor cynically mocks the idea of a divine nation, noting that 90% of the population has been abandoned. Looking out over the village, she curses the unfairness of their lives and wonders what Liliana is actually doing for them. Yor decides to take her rest, lying down on a pile of hay. Her rest is suddenly interrupted when someone calls out to her, asking for her attention. She looks up to find two well-dressed strangers, a dark-haired man and a long-haired blonde man, standing over her. The girl stares in surprise at the travelers who appear far too clean for her village. The dark-haired man politely asks for guidance, explaining that they are looking for a specific house. Recognizing their refined appearance, Yor immediately realizes they are Shinmin. She initially refuses to help, explaining that her pay will be docked if she doesn't return from her break on time. The long-haired man ponders how to convince her while Yor watches them skeptically. Scratching her head, Yor internally dismisses the dark-haired traveler as an idiot. The dark-haired man, Kirikou, looks slightly flustered by her blunt attitude. The long-haired man, Kaito, offers to personally cover her lost wages and pay her extra if she guides them. Kaito flashes a silver coin and a charming smile, asking if that deal is acceptable. Yor instantly leaps up and agrees to the deal, much to the surprise of the two men. Kaito introduces himself and his companion, Kirikou, then asks the girl for her name. The girl identifies herself as Yor as she prepares to lead the way. She leads them through the bustling, crowded streets of the lower-class district. Kaito remarks that the place is quite lively, asking if it is always this crowded. Yor darkly replies that noise is a good sign because silence would mean everyone has died. She pivots the conversation, asking which specific house they are trying to find. Kirikou checks a document and confirms the name they are looking for is Denim. Yor asks what business they have there, but Kaito apologizes and says he can only tell the person in question. She stops in her tracks, repeating the name Denim with a suspicious look. Kaito asks if she knows the family, specifically a girl named Kukuru. Yor looks away, confirming that she does indeed know of them. Kirikou and Kaito are relieved, but Yor cuts their celebration short with a grim, but she bluntly reveals that Kukuru of the Denim family died in an accident at the age of 8. Both men are visibly shocked, Kirikou shouting in disbelief at the news of the death. Yor insists that everyone in the area knows the truth and suggests they ask around if they doubt her. Kaito tries to calm the frantic Kirikou, who mentions a crystal, while Kaito insists on confirming the facts first. Even if the girl is gone, Kaito asks if Yor can take them to the family's home anyway. Yor points toward a dilapidated shack, identifying it as the Denim house. She explains that maps are unreliable in the slums because residents and buildings change so frequently. Yor ends her guidance there and asks for the promised money now that they have reached their destination. Yor runs away with a wave, calling out a cheerful goodbye to the Shinmin. She reflects on her interaction, deciding that despite their origin, they were actually good people. Back at the house, Kaito and Kirikou are suddenly startled by a menacing presence. A group of rough, muscular men emerges from the building, declaring the two travelers to be prime prey. Realizing they were led into a trap, Kirikou yells in frustration at being tricked by that brat. The scene shifts back to Yor, who is casually walking through the village. Clenching her fist with a smug expression, she celebrates her successful deception. She justifies her actions by noting that in this town, it is one's own fault for being careless. Yor lets out a tired sigh as she continues her journey home. She complains about the foreman's strictness, noting he gets angry if workers leave for even a moment. Despite the risks, Yor is delighted that she can now afford to buy better meat than usual thanks to the coin she swindled. Her celebration is cut short when she hears a familiar voice calling out to her. She stops, her expression shifting from joy to sudden cold sweat. Kaito and Kirikou are standing right behind her, looking entirely unfazed by their encounter with the thugs. Yor quickly puts on a fake smile and waves, acting as if she is happy to see they look well. Internally, she is reeling, never expecting them to return from that trap unscathed. She realizes with a chill that the swords at their waists clearly weren't just for show. Kirikou grabs Yor by the collar, scolding her for lying while she tries to act innocent. Yor gasps in surprise, realizing her street-smart tricks have finally failed her. She is confused that they aren't angrier, while Kirikou expresses how disgusting it was to be surrounded by those scruffy men. Kaito notes that thanks to the thugs, they actually managed to learn the location of the true denim house. He looks directly at her, asking if the building they are standing in front of is her actual home. Kaito reveals he heard interesting rumors about boy-girl twins in the denim family who looked exactly alike. He brings up the story that the sister, Kokuru, supposedly died in an accident at age 8. Kaito stares at Yor, his gaze piercing through her disguise. He asks her directly if she is actually a girl. Yor remains silent, her expression guarded and grim under his scrutiny. Kaito asks why she is dressing as a boy and taking her brother's name. Yor maintains her cover, insisting that Kokuru is dead and gone from this world. A voice from inside the house interrupts the tension, asking if anyone is there. Yor quickly brushes off the dirt and calls out to her mother to announce she is home. Kaito and Kirikou watch her with a mixture of suspicion and pity. Yor tells them that whatever business they have with Kokuru is irrelevant to her. She prepares to enter her home, leaving the two Shinmins standing outside. She promises to finish their conversation properly at a later time. Yor whispers a desperate plea, asking them not to speak of these things in front of her mother. She insists that Kokuru herself will be the one to listen to them. Her expression is one of raw vulnerability as she begs for their silence. Kaito quietly agrees to her request as she opens the door. Yor's mother, a woman with long, flowing hair, welcomes her home with a warm smile. Yor responds that she is back, her demeanor shifting instantly to that of a loving child. She lies to her mother, claiming these men are travelers from the capital who got lost and invited them to eat. The mother is surprised but hospitable, asking if they have guests. Kaito takes the mother's hand, praising her for raising a child with such a kind and pure heart. Yor watches with an annoyed, sarcastic expression as Kaito lays on the charm. The mother modestly brushes off the praise, insisting her child has always been considerate. She looks at Yor with immense affection, calling the child her pride and joy. Kaito and Kirikou share a heavy, meaningful look as they witness the mother's genuine love. They sit down for a meal together, and Kaito cautiously asks about the woman's husband. The chapter ends as Kaito addresses the mother directly to dig deeper into the family's past. A grieving mother recounts the tragic loss of her husband, a kind man who worked himself to death when their children were only 2 years old. She fondly remembers her twin children, who were so identical in build and appearance that no one else could ever tell them apart. A companion listens intently as the woman begins to reveal the fate of those identical children. The somber atmosphere deepens as it is revealed that one of the children, the sister Kokuru, died at the age of 8. Her companions express deep pity for the lovely girl who was so close to her brother Yor that they often swapped clothes to prank others. When the traveler asks if even a mother would have trouble distinguishing such identical twins, the woman's expression shifts. Her eyes widen with an intense, haunting certainty as she flatly denies the possibility of ever being mistaken. She declares that even if the rest of the world was fooled, she never once mistook one child for the other. Looking directly at her companion, she refers to them as Yor while lamenting the poor Kokuru. The companion, addressed as Mom, affirms her statement as they stand among the supplies of their modest home. A sense of lingering sadness hangs over the conversation regarding the child who was lost. The narrative shifts to the harsh reality of their lives after Yor supposedly died and the mother's spirit completely broke. The mother, never being strong, had leaned entirely on her husband and desperately needed someone to rely on to feel safe. Living alone with twins in such a poor, harsh city presented struggles that were almost unimaginable. It is revealed that both children, Yor and Kukuru, had identical smiles that comforted their mother equally before the tragedy. In a harrowing memory, the mother is shown distraught and weeping, calling out for her son Yor. Because weak women were exploited and could hardly find work, the household desperately needed a male presence to survive. To save her mother, the surviving daughter realized that the only thing she could do was to become Yor. The heavy realization settles in that the person standing there is actually Kukuru inhabiting her brother's identity. A stern voice cuts through the air, asking how long she intends to keep up this dangerous charade. The survivor looks down at her boots, maintaining the masculine persona while facing the confrontation. Her companion warns that living as her brother Yor is a recklessness that cannot last forever. Kukuru deflects the question, asking what else she could possibly have done in their situation. She argues that her mother's fragile heart and body are entirely dependent on Yor and would break completely if the truth were revealed. The companion counters that by not saving herself, she will remain alone and unable to move forward with her own life. The traveler's expression softens as they prepare to pivot the conversation toward a different, perhaps divine, path. They bring up the selection of goddesses, a sacred tradition known throughout the country. The traveler notes that anyone living in this land would have heard of this selection eventually. Legend says that every 100 years, the pure crystal chooses 4 holy daughters to receive powers from goddess Liliana and become Shinjo. Frustrated and cynical, Kukuru retorts that she cares nothing for goddesses or divine selection. The traveler speaks her true name, Kukuru Denham, with an air of absolute authority. A close-up reveals the weight of the revelation as the traveler stares into Kukuru's eyes. They drop the ultimate bombshell. The pure crystal has chosen her specifically to be one of the Shinjo. Kukuru is visibly stunned as the reality of being chosen by the gods she despises sinks in. The travelers reveal they are there by direct order of the sober pope to escort her to the Crystal Palace temple. Disbelieving, Kukuru waves them off, dismissing the entire situation as a cruel and wasteful joke. The traveler corners her, insisting with terrifying intensity that there is no lie or scheme and that the goddesses truly exist. Kukuru screams back, refusing to believe that people as abandoned and miserable as them would ever be chosen by divinity. She laughs bitterly, calling it an unfunny joke and declaring that they are the very people the gods have forsaken. She lists the exploitation they have suffered, mocking the idea of tax-free living and prayer when they have been crushed by life. With a final, desperate roar, she shouts that if there are gods for others, there certainly aren't any for her. A neighbor shouts for them to take their fighting elsewhere, breaking the heavy tension of the moment. The travelers find the situation troublesome as they prepare to deal with the resistant girl. Kukuru is haunted by the physical changes of her own body, her breasts and hips, that make her masculine disguise increasingly difficult to maintain. She knows her reckless plan to live as a man is reaching its inevitable breaking point. As she becomes more of a woman physically, she realizes she can no longer hide behind Yor's identity. She admits to herself that she is already at her absolute limit. After escorting the travelers to an inn, she returns home under a beautiful moon and announces her arrival. She calls out for her mother, hoping for a moment of peace after the day's revelations. She finds her mother resting quietly, unaware of the divine mandate that is about to change their lives forever. A close-up reveals the heavy, somber expression of a daughter carrying the weight of a monumental secret. Kneeling beside her resting mother, she admits there is a question she has desperately wanted to ask but never found the courage to voice. The silence of the room underscores the profound tension of her unspoken thoughts. She gazes at her mother, internally questioning if the woman has actually been sane and aware of the truth all along. The girl reflects on her painful reality. To survive, she had to abandon her identity as Kukuru and become Yor for her mother's sake. She dismisses the idea of her mother knowing the truth as a foolish, impossible thought. A dark realization takes hold. If her mother is pretending not to notice while calling her Yor, then she herself must be the one losing her mind. Haunted by the day her brother died, she renews her vow to never leave her mother alone, even if it means following her into death. Her internal crisis deepens as she begins to lose sight of who she truly is beneath the mask. Tears well in her eyes as the psychological toll of the double life finally reaches its breaking point. She stares blankly, grappling with the fundamental question, who am I exactly? The black-haired traveler suddenly bursts with emotion, his face contorted in a desperate shout. He calls out her true name, Kukuru, shattering the silence and the lie she has been living. He confronts her, declaring that she has no right to end her own life or her mother's life on a whim. Even if life is hard or painful, he insists that choosing to live is the only path forward. To his shock, she reacts with sudden, sharp movements, physically pushing back against his preaching. Covering her ears, she tells him to be quiet before he wakes her mother with his noisy interference. Frustrated, she tries to shove him out, telling him he has no business coming into someone else's home to preach. The traveler is caught off guard by her fierce resistance as she desperately tries to maintain her precarious world. The blonde traveler intervenes with a calm, steady gaze, asking if she would be willing to make a deal. Stunned by the unexpected offer, she pauses her struggle, repeating the word deal in confusion. The traveler points out the obvious. Her mother is physically and mentally weak and needs immediate hospitalization that this poor city cannot provide. The terms are laid bare. Her mother will receive top-tier treatment in the divine capital if she agrees to go with them as a Shinjo. She stands frozen, the gravity of the choice reflected in her wide, trembling eyes. The travelers wait for her answer, asking directly if she will accept this life-changing bargain. They urge her to do it for her mother and for her own future, promising to share whatever concerns she has. She realizes how foolishly kind they are, noting that as Shinmin, they have the power to do whatever they want to the abandoned without conditions. The fact that they are asking for her consent instead of forcing her moves something deep within her. With a determined stance, she finally gives her answer, "All right, I'll go." Standing before her tattered home, she realizes she no longer needs to be the ghost of yore or the broken kukuru. She turns back to them with a request, "Call me Ku, okay?" The travelers look at her with newfound respect, simply replying, "Understood." Her face clears, a small, genuine smile appearing as she steps out from the shadows of her past. Under the crescent moon, she declares her independence. She will live as a new person, Ku, no longer just a half of someone else.